Celestial greetings. I'm Janet Booth, a professional astrologer from West Hartford, Connecticut, and welcome to my program on astrology called Looking Up. This episode is entitled Astrological Compatibility, and we are going to talk about how the different signs get along. This is kind of inspired by a question that was posed to me the other day about, what's the best sign for me and how do I get along with such and such a sign? And we generally want to think that way, don't we? And when we ask a question like that, usually the person asking is meaning their sun sign. And that's the sign from that time of year that you're born. It usually goes from the 20-something of one month to the 20-something of the next month, in that range. And there's more to you than just that sign. So before we even talk about how the signs get along, we should just stand back a little bit and see what are we looking at as being in the sign. So of course, the sun being the most important thing in our solar system and in our chart, your sun sign is a very key thing for you about compatibility with other people. But you would also say you've got a moon sign too. The sun is how you want to shine and how you want to be seen, to kind of build up your ego a little bit. The moon is much more about how you want to bond with somebody. If you think about moon is related to mother and the womb, and we all came out of our mother's womb, there's no more bonding than that. So moon signs figure very strongly into compatibility. And of course, if we're talking about love compatibility, which is what most people mean when they ask that question, Venus is the planet for that. And Venus is how we want to give affection, and also who do we attract in our lives. When we look at Mars, that can be important in compatibility too, because a man tends to kind of project his Mars sign traits, and women seem to be drawn to men who have the traits of their Mars sign. And no discussion of compatibility would be complete unless we talked about the horizon line in the chart. The eastern point of the chart is where the sun rises, but that's sort of where we dawn into life. It's our personality that we show to other people. And on the western or setting side of the chart is where the area of marriage and significant other kind of relationships come in. Now, you might not know what the sign is that's rising and the opposite one setting at your birth if you don't know your birth time. And that's where it gets a little bit tricky for people who don't know their birth time. So you just kind of have to ignore that piece of the overall puzzle. But if you do know your birth time and you have found out that rising sign and the sign at the western horizon, those are something that has an extreme importance for you in relationship. And there's some other things when we do serious called synastry, meaning stars together, how do two people's stars go together, we look at a few other factors. There's something that's called the part of marriage. That's a blending of that rising sign, who you are, the setting sign of who you're attracting, and Venus, so the love planet. There's also something called Juno. It's a minor asteroid, not really a planet, but named for Jupiter's wife, and it has a lot to do with marital compatibility. And another real bonding factor in the chart is what's called the north and south nodes, N-O-D-E-S, of the moon. And these are the intersections of, the Earth's going around the sun, and while the Earth's going around the sun, the moon's going around the Earth. So there's two important orbits, and where they intersect are these nodes. The symbols for them look kind of like headphones. It's sort of like two circles joined by a rope, either above for the north node or below for the south node. And it gives you the idea of the symbols for spirit or an individual are those circles, and the ropes are showing the connection, almost like oxen being bound by a yoke that would go over both of their heads. So when you listen to how I talk about how the signs get along or don't get along so well, remember that it's not only your sun sign that you could be thinking of within this context, it's also a lot of factors. And because we're each made up of so many different components, there might be a part of your personality that gets along great with another part of somebody else's personality, but then there's going to be some part of you that doesn't get along so well with some part of the other person. And then we got some problems. So that's kind of how life is. Very rarely is everything 100% smooth. There's going to be some things that are the wrinkles that you need to iron out in your relationship. So with that as a sort of precursor, let's talk about how signs can get along. And one of the important things I was mentioning with the rising and setting signs is the idea of two signs being opposite one another in the zodiac. And opposites we sometimes say attract, but we could also say that sometimes opposites compete or clash. You know, they might complement. They're very different, so they might kind of fill in a piece that you don't have. But there's also such a drastically 180-degree difference in how you approach things that can be conflicting. And when we talk about those opposites, we could almost think there's an antidote in there too. So if there's a negative trait in one sign, you might find that the positive trait of another sign becomes the antidote to that. Now, there are three ways that we categorize signs, and that's going to be important in our analysis of how signs are compatible. So the first is what we call polarity, and that's either, you could call it feminine and masculine, you could call it yin and yang, you could call it positive and negative, more like the magnetic charge, not so much like negative as in bad. And the signs, the 12 signs around the zodiac, alternate a yin, a yang, a yin, a yang, a yin, a yang. So that anytime you're looking at one sign, the signs to either side of it are the different polarities. They approach things differently. So that the more masculine or yang signs are more outgoing and more kind of assertive, and they kind of try to initiate things maybe a little bit more. The yin or the feminine signs are more receptive or reacting to other people, but they're more to take things in or more introverted, the yang more extroverted. So if we were just to go around that zodiac circle, we'd say the first sign, Aries, that's a yang or masculine sign. Then Taurus is yin, Gemini, yang, almost androgynous in a way, but Cancer, yin, Leo, very yang, Virgo, yin, Libra, yang, Scorpio, yin, Sagittarius, yang, Capricorn, yin, Aquarius, yang, Pisces, yin. We don't do that much with polarity in astrology. We tend to look a little bit more at elements and modes, and those are our other two categories. Many people are familiar with the elements, fire, earth, air, and water. And within that, there are the two polarities represented. The fire and the air signs are of the yang, more masculine or outgoing, extroverted polarity. The water and the earth signs are the yin, feminine, introverted. And we will see that the yang signs tend to get along better with the other yang signs, and the yin signs tend to get along better with the other yin signs. So in general, fire and air signs get along. In general, earth and water signs get along. So what are the three signs of each of the four elements? In the element of fire, we have Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. In the element of air, we have Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. So those 6 in any combination tend to have a little more in common, feel a little bit more simpatico. And in fact, many astrology books looking at compatibility on a sign level will tell you that some of your most compatible signs will be of the same element, and particularly the next element in zodiacal order. So in other words, Aries attracted to Leo, Leo attracted to Sagittarius, Sagittarius attracted to Aries. Gemini attracted to Libra, Libra attracted to Aquarius, Aquarius attracted to Gemini. On the yin side, we have the earth signs, and they are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. We've got the water signs, and they are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. So if we look at this same theory of being kind of attracted to the next sign in your element that comes in the zodiac order, Taurus is attracted to Virgo. Virgo is attracted to Capricorn. Capricorn is attracted to Taurus. In the water signs, Cancer is attracted to Scorpio. Scorpio is attracted to Pisces. Pisces is attracted to Cancer. And all of the water and the earth signs tend to get along very well with each other. You know, as I was going through this little list, another track is running in my head, and I'm going, oh yeah, you know, there was the Gemini guy who was really attracted to me. I'm a Libra, but I was really attracted to the Aquarius guy. And if you keep going around in those circles of your element, there's no time that the two of you are attracted to each other. That's not so good. But as I said, each of us contains multiple factors. And so, you know, one might be attractive to me and another one might not. So, okay. So those are the 4 elements. And the 4 elements, within each element, those signs form what we call a grand trine, or roughly a third of the circle apart from one another. And that's one of the major good flows of energy in a chart. The other compatible element will form 2 signs away to one side, 2 signs away to the other side. Those 60 degrees are called sextile. Those are very good. But the other one that is of your compatible element will be across from you. So you might say, okay, in fire, we've got the Aries, 2 signs away goes to the Gemini. On the other side, 2 signs away goes to Aquarius. But the third air element is Libra, across from Aries. If we look at Leo, it's got compatibility 2 sides, either side, to Gemini and Libra. But the other air sign, Aquarius, is the opposite to Leo. Might not be the best match. Then when we look at Libra, oh, it's got Leo 2 sides away to one side. It's got Sagittarius 2 signs away to the other side. But the opposite fire sign, Aries, might be the more difficult match. Then if we come over to water and earth. So Taurus has on either side of it 2 signs away. It's got Pisces on one side and Cancer on the other side. So those are 2 water signs, go good with the earth. But the water sign across from it is Scorpio, and that can be a tougher match for Taurus. When we look at Cancer, again, Taurus is its good buddy on one side, Virgo on the other side. But across from Cancer is Capricorn, a little tougher. When we look at Virgo, it's got Cancer one side, 2 signs on the other side is Scorpio, but the opposite is Capricorn. Scorpio, it's got Virgo to one side, Capricorn to the other side, and the opposite one is Taurus. And if we come up to Capricorn, we've got Scorpio on one side, Pisces on the other, and the opposite is Cancer. Let's see, I don't want to leave anybody out. That was the Earths. waters. I think I did them all, but you get the idea. 2 signs away, good. 4 signs away, great. Across from, maybe not so great. But in general, better than things that are 3 signs apart on either side. So when we talked about the 4 elements, the other categorization, of which there are 3 types, 4 in each type, are called the modes or the qualities. And these are the signs that the sun would go through at the beginning of each season, called the cardinal signs. They're not the cardinal sins, but cardinal means primary or first or beginning or getting the ball rolling. And these are signs that like to initiate. And also, they're not afraid of being confrontational. They're doer kind of energies. And those would be Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. Then we have in the middle of the season, sort of settling in and maybe getting stuck in one's ways, are what's called the fixed signs. They have a more stubborn streak than the other sides, but they want to persist and they want to get things finished. And these are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And the 4 in these 3 categories are not tremendously compatible. The third category here is what's called mutable signs, and they come at the end of the season, and they're all about adapt and dodge and swerve and get out of the way. They can get kind of scattered energy if they don't watch out, because they don't stick to something, and they're not all about getting something started. So these season ending signs are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. And in each case, the cardinals, the fixed or the mutable, would form a cross in their positioning around the zodiac circle. So it's kind of like at cross purposes. And these will be the most difficult signs for the other signs to get along with. Now it's very handy when we have 4 elements, 3 signs in each. 4 times 3 is 12. Or we have 3 qualities or modes and 4 signs in each. And 3 times 4 is 12. So those are your 12 signs of the zodiac. And now you have a little better idea of why astrologers don't want to do what some astrologers suggest and stick a 13th sign into the mix. And that sign they would call the snake handler, that's over near Scorpio, and the real name is Ophiuchus. And nobody wants to have their sign be Ophiuchus. I don't think, but maybe somebody really loves snakes. Okay. Now, people will ask, is it good to have the same sign? Because I've been talking about compatibility or clashes between different kind of categories of signs. And the answer is yes and no. I remember once my nephew and his girlfriend asked me, and they were born 1 day apart, same year. I mean, their charts were like practically identical. Aunt Janet, is this a good thing? I go, well, you know those things you like about yourself? Yeah, double those. Great. I said, you know those things that drive you nuts about yourself you don't like too much? Yeah, double those. Oh. And in the end, they did not stay together. And hopefully they both got good relationships after that. But sometimes too much of the same thing is not a good thing. And so you want to have somebody that kind of fills in for you what you don't have. In fact, sometimes I'll see 2 people will come to me to have their chart comparison done. And let's just say one of them might have their planets spread out around 2/3 of the circle. And maybe the other one does too, but maybe it's a different 2/3. So, or the signs that they have. Somebody's missing nothing that goes in the summer signs, and somebody else is born in the summer. So a lot of times we're looking for somebody to fill in a missing piece of what we don't have. And that can be very helpful, because if you're a couple and you're, living together and maybe raising a family together, if one person is really good at getting things started and the other person is really good at getting things finished up, At least between the two of you, you get things started and you get things finished up. If both of you are strong on that mutable mode where you're just trying to change everything all the time, it's like, yeah, you're going around in circles and circles. You don't really get anywhere. So you really want to have some of this complementary, I guess is what you would want to say. And there are some signs that are just more naturally gravitating towards relationship matters. So the primary one we would say is Libra, and that is the sign of marriage and significant others. It's the sign that has a sort of natural position in the circle at that setting or relationship side of the chart. And even the symbol for Libra, it looks kind of like an equal sign, but there's a bump in the top bar, and that's supposed to look like the sun at the horizon setting. So Libra is very much about the other person. It's not a me, me, me sign. And therefore, they kind of yield to the partner very much. And this is why two Libras together can be really hard, because one says, you know, what do you want to do? And the other one says, I don't know, what do you want to do? Well, I don't know, what do you want to do? You get the indecisiveness of Libra doubled. And that was what my nephew and his girlfriend had. It was not a good thing. But this is a sign that wants to either work one-to-one and team up, or be in part of a bigger team, but very people-oriented. And very much the opposite of Aries, which is a more solo sign, or self-concerned, or trying to put oneself forward. Now that can be a fairly good match. They complement. The Aries knows what they want and goes after what they want, and the Libra helps them get it. The only problem is after a while the Libra might feel like, well, what's in it for me, when they start having, once in a while, those feelings. The sign of Aquarius is also kind of a natural people sign, and very much about friends and groups and circles of acquaintances that you travel in. Once in a while there's a sort of lone wolf side that comes into Aquarius, or we might say they need their breathing room from time to time, but they're generally a very social sign. And truly those air signs, Libra, Aquarius, and Gemini, are the ones that are most communication oriented, and we know how important communication is for a relationship. And I think I didn't even mention that one of the other planets that's important to look at in compatibility is Mercury, the communication planet. Because if one person is like happy with silence and the other person feels like all silence must be filled in with chitter chatter, they will not be compatible. They'll drive each other crazy. But Gemini is the sign of the twins, and so that's two people who were in the womb together, and therefore kind of always liking to be with somebody else, not generally a sort of solo energy. When we talk about the cardinal signs as being good at starting things up, but not necessarily at sticking with something, when it comes to relationships, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn might be the ones to get into a relationship, but not always stay till the bitter end. The fixed signs, the ones that want to hang in there, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, they're less likely to make a change. They don't want to give something up until they see that it's, got no more hope left. In fact, a lot of times Scorpio hangs on even well past when it should have given up the ghost. The mutable signs, they can be very changeable, and one day they want to be in the relationship and one day they don't. Or sometimes we get talk with forked tongue out of two sides of your mouth, like with Gemini particularly, but even Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, they can be sort of hard to pin down and all over the place. So that makes relationships difficult. Leos need a lot of attention, or they like a lot of attention. They like to be the center stage with the spotlight and the microphone. So they want somebody around them who's not competing with them on that level, unless they're going to do a two-person act together, and maybe they'd like that. But otherwise, they kind of are better off with somebody who wants to be in a supportive role, or, you know, there's the leading actor, actress, and yeah, best leading supporters, whatever. You know what I mean. So let's see. Taurus, very touchy sign, tactile. They want to hold hands. They want to be physical with their partner. If they're with somebody who does not like physicality, that is never going to work. Virgos can be a little bit fussy. They can pick on others, they can pick on themselves. On the nice side, they like to be helpful, they're very serving, but they may not like it if they have a partner who doesn't do any work at all. They may feel like, well, I'm the one that's doing all the work around the house or in the relationship. Cancers, family, bonding, so close, so important for them to have close people. And they can make a family with friends if they don't have literal relatives to make it with, or they'll start a new family with their partner. But if they, by some chance, fall in love with a person who does not want to have a family, that's pretty much going to break the Cancer's heart. So people who want to have a family together, that's where probably two Cancers can go along really well. But I want to warn you that I always tell Cancers, there's 12 kinds of Cancers, because during that month that the sun goes through Cancer, the moon goes through all 12 signs. So you could have any moon sign with Cancer. And that's going to make a little bit of a difference as to how much does that Cancer want to be home or be in a family. You know, if their moon's in Sagittarius, they want to be all over the planet and not necessarily at home. The Scorpio people, privacy is so important for them. They don't want somebody who's like the big mouth that's going to be out there talking about everything with the relationship. So if Gemini is really chatty and Scorpio wants that privacy, that's not always a very good match. In fact, the sign that is one to the side of what's across from you is possibly a real mismatch, because you don't have anything in common, not the same polarity, not the same element, not the same mode. So lastly, I want to talk about Pisces for a sec, because they're like the sponge. They take in the energy of whatever's going on around them. So very important for them to be around people that they feel are supportive or simpatico with them and not rubbing them the wrong way or not being toxic to them in some way, because they're going to absorb all that energy in. And I'm sure we have not gone through all 144 possible combinations of, you know, each of the 12 signs times 12. But the idea of the principles to look at here are, A, you've got a lot of sign energy going on. Some of it's going to be compatible with another person, some of it's not. B, go to the strengths of your elements or your polarity. C, watch out for the clashes within those same modes. And D, your opposite might work for you, might not. Have to kind of feel that out. And some people just plain are more relationship oriented than others. So you got to take that into consideration as well. So I hope that there's been something here for you to learn about your sign, or maybe think about the sign of people that you've had relationships with and how did those go. And we'll explore more topics before long on Looking Up.